Hi, this is Jeannie Ortega with BREATHEcast, and in studio today for BC Pulse, we have the Dove Award-winning singer, songwriter, and now author, Tiffany Arbuckle, aka Plumb. And it is my pleasure to have you, Tiffany, oh Plumb, I'll call you Plumb, to have you in studio with us. Your album, Need You Now, the deluxe version is out. Your book, Need You Now, is also out. Yep. And it's just a wealth of just rich emotion and true life, and I thank you so much. I'm excited to talk about everything that's going on.
Thank you.
I know your Need You Now, your single, sold, I read 250,000 copies online.
I don't know. I don't even keep up with that.
The original Need You Now just broke into the top 100 of the Billboard charts, and I know that for the new book and with the deluxe version, I know that God is just going to continue to bless your ministry. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
I definitely want to talk about everything that you were so open about in your book and with your music. I was telling you a little earlier, just reading a couple of chapters in your book, it was just a river of tears because of how real you were. And I think we need that in the Christian community for sure, and we just need that as people.
Right.
So can you tell us a little bit about Need You Now, the book? And just kind
absolutely.
Introduce us to what we can expect.
Well, the book Need You Now, A Story of Hope, is more or less a memoir. It's kind of a from start to now.
I love that.
The story of me, and I didn't write it for any narcissistic reasons of like, oh, I'm sure everyone wants to know everything about me, as much as one of the most rewarding parts of what I've been able to be a part of as an artist in music is the times when I've had a real conversation with a fan after the show, or the times that I'm able to explain what the song means and then getting responses through social media or one-on-one. And you know, a song is only 3 to 5 minutes, give or take, long, and you only have 30 seconds to introduce it sometimes, or 2 minutes with a fan after the show. And there was lots and lots of times when I felt like there was more conversation to be had, and I'm a talker, and so I felt like I wish I could spend more time here and here and here. And when I first met my manager, I was telling him kind of the story of me up until that point, and he said, you should write a book one day. And I kind of laughed it off like, oh yeah, right, haha. And shortly after that season, my husband and I unexpectedly and brutally separated, and we were headed for divorce. And it seemed like every story that I had ever told that was in an effort to inspire or encourage or to give hope was kind of turning around and coming back at me. And I was having to be held accountable to that, and I was having to kind of self-examine, and I was kind of having to eat some of my words that I've said, that there's always hope. And I felt hopeless, truly hopeless, for the first time in my life. And so, fast forward, my husband and I went through a really difficult season, and
you postponed your record at the time, the first...
Right, the record was finished, and 2 months later, while we were kind of orchestrating the release of it, is when we separated. So I had to sit down with the label and just say, stop the press, like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know that I can do this as a single mother if we divorce. And so they were very gracious and understanding, and they just put it on hold. And during that time, the song Need You Now, that I wrote about panic and anxiety attacks that I struggle with.
Do you still struggle with those?
I
know I read that.
I do still, not as much as I did in high school, but in high school it was every day, multiple times a day, and it was like socially paralyzing a lot of the time, just because I'm a social person and I wanted to be, at this event or that event, and I wouldn't be able to because of some anxieties that I had. And so and mine kind of manifested themselves through these really debilitating stomach aches. And so I was labeled just a rare case of IBS because they didn't really know what was triggering them, because it was through anxiety. And so it was, if you did certain exams on me at a doctor's office would say, you're perfectly healthy, there's nothing wrong. And so it was trying to figure out, well, then why am I having these horrible cramping stomach aches that literally send me into a closet somewhere trying to get away from everybody. And And so I was listening to the song. I just happened to be listening to the song Need You Now while we were separated. And I'm the writer of the song. And so it meant something totally different to me, because here I'm I wrote a song about how many times I've needed you in these dark places. And then now I need you more than I've ever needed you before in my life right now. And for some reason, in that moment, as desperate and as bleak and as dark as my life seemed, there was just a little sliver of hope there, that I felt like if God could use this song to minister to me, and I'm the one that wrote it, that never had happened before. And I've been inspired in my shows and in my performances, and I've felt emotional, but having a song that I wrote about one thing means something totally different to me. To become a listener of my own song, that just had never happened to me before. And so I felt like if God is using this in my life right now, and I'm the writer, how much more He could probably use this in the lives of other people. And so that little sliver of hope was like, what if He wants to use this? And in my mind, mathematically thinking like, okay, because I don't know that He can use this through me if I'm a single mom, because I'm probably not going to do the artist thing anymore. So the record probably wouldn't come out. And so I kind of had to backtrack and think, if He's going to use this, then maybe He's going to reconcile this marriage.
That's
maybe
amazing.
And then I shifted my thinking from not if, but when you do this, I want to be a different artist than I was before. And I fell in love with Him. I felt like I had a romantic...
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that.
Yeah.
You explained how you'd been saved for so long.
Yeah.
And you really fell in love with Jesus, like for real, for the first time.
For the first time, yeah.
And, you know, I thought that was even interesting. I mean, myself not being a Christian prior and coming into it, it was like, and He rescued me. So it was that desperate moment where, you know, I found that. But I thought it was interesting that you were so honest, that you would say, even though you'd been a Christian for so long, now through this painful experience, you fell in love with Jesus even more. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
And for what it's worth, like if you imagine, like my husband had left, and there was this understanding that Jesus would never leave, and that at that season, and both my husband and I both of us had things to own, and so neither one of us are innocent in all of that. But it, you know, for him, I wasn't enough anymore, and to know that with Jesus, I'm always going to be enough, and that I will always be beautiful, and that you know, to have a husband in the home with our 3 children, I feel protected, I feel provided for, and he wasn't there. And then again, God is going to protect me, and God's going to continue to provide, and so all these, you know, attributes that you kind of project onto your spouse to meet in a need that you have, He was meeting for me. Like in the absence of Jeremy, God was being faithful. God was providing. He was protecting. He was loving, and making me feel enough. And I literally almost gave Him a face in my mind of like a crush that I had on Him. I was like, you know what? You're the ultimate love. You're the ultimate. This is what we want in relationships, and somehow we put that onto, whether it's a spouse or just various relationships in our lives, we project that need onto them, and we put that expectation there. When that doesn't work out, then we want to be angry at God. And I learned a really hard lesson, that He gave me a choice. He didn't force Himself and His love on me. He gave me a choice, and I had actually chosen my husband over him.
Wow.
In ways that I didn't realize. And I had chosen my career over him, and I had chosen my children over him, and I had chosen myself over him. And then when the husband wasn't there, and the career was, you know, on the fence, and a lot of other things, finances and status, all the things that you didn't realize that you put a lot of your hope in, when those weren't there to put your hope in, I could still put my hope in Him, and He was not only enough, He was absolutely all that I needed. And I don't know, it was like a romantic love happened in me for Him, and it was like, you know what, I love you more than Jeremy Lee. And as much as I loved Jeremy Lee, and as devastated as I was, there was a confidence that I had in Jesus that I'd never had before, that gave me, what I didn't realize, gave me the ability to love my husband the way that I should have been loving him. And you know, he was in a dark place as well, and he has been quoted as saying that when he saw me start to love God the way that I do now, I was able to love him the way that he needed to be loved. And it's just amazing how it kind of works hand in hand. And it's easy to talk about now, but it's, you know, a day and a week and months after, you know, all of that adds up. It seemed like a lifetime. There were days that it felt like a bottomless black hole. And so I don't want to paint this picture that like, oh, it was just a few weeks and then we were great. Like it was months and months of what felt like torture. But at the same time, I would go through something like that all over again, if I had to, because of the confidence that I have in Jesus now that I didn't. Beautiful. You know. And I was going to say too that he also kind of melted a lot of the fears that I have. I still struggle with some anxiety, but distinctly less because of how much more faith I have in him. I have a lot less fear and a lot more trust. And so, I don't know, like I felt like he did this. And so kind of going back to my manager saying, you know, you should write a book because of this or this or this that he thought was interesting or that someone might find interesting. After we reconciled, he was like, remember that book? Like you really do need to, and you need to put this story in it too. And so, so I give him a lot of credit for giving me the courage to do it. But it was like when God does something so clearly, so evidently him, people have asked me, was it hard to tell this story? And it's not hard for me to tell. I am excited to tell it. I feel honored to be able to share something that God did this. I did not do this. This is his handiwork. And it comes from actually truly believing that there is hope and getting out of his way and letting him do what only he can do. And that's the hard part.
That's incredible.